Ladies and gentlemen, competition policy and competition law enforcement are complement to trade policy. They try to make sure that the market, which has been opened by trade, remain competitive and deliver at the lowest possible cost the wider possible diversity. When I think about the servicification of manufacturing, I think there are two elements to distinguish. First, the increasing importance of services in the input of the manufacturing process, and second, the increase in services as part of the output of the manufacturing process. On the first dimension, with respect to the inputs, competition authorities have been very keen and very active to ensure that those markets remain, the markets for the services for manufacturing remain open and competitive. And this has implied two types of actions. One of them are anti-competitive, elimination of anti-competitive practices through cases, and the other one has been an action, very often an advocacy towards governments or towards bodies that rule those professions to ensure that they remain open and that they don't harbor anti-competitive practices. Let me give you two examples of this. Kenya, for example, has a competition authority which has issued a warning and an official advisory to the government that the scale of fees which was being contemplated both by the Engineers Board of Kenya and also by the Public Accountant Association were violations of competition law and therefore per se illegal. Indeed, they included a minimum fee that those professions wanted to charge to manufacturing firms. In Brazil, CAGE has uncovered a cartel among the industrial and building maintenance profession. Those firms, engineering firms, would get together, fix prices, and rig the bids on both public and private procurement for their services. CAGE has imposed a sanction on this cartel. I could give you many other examples of elimination of anti-competitive practices among engineers, for example, in Malaysia, among lawyers, for example, in France, against public notaries in Spain and in Mexico, against maintenance service company, against accountant, for example, in India, etc., etc. Second dimension, in large services such as telecom, transportation, or electricity, there can also be anti-competitive practices which make those inputs more expensive for the manufacturing firms. And these competition authorities have been very active to eliminate those practices as well. I will take one striking example, which was the fact that the European Commission sanctioned to the tune of 800 million euros a cartel between 12 airline companies to impose a surtax on the shipping of products through airlines. This was a completely unjustified surtax, and it increased the price of transportation for all the manufacturing firms who want to transport their goods. Similarly, the cartel between Telefónica in Spain and Portugal Telecom to not compete on industrial services was eliminated by competition authority. If I now turn to the output part, there are two dimensions to the problem. The first one is that a number of manufacturers of products, industrial products, decided to offer as well a number of services on what we call aftermarkets, for example, services for maintenance. And the issue there was whether they were using their power on the product to try to eliminate competition on the aftermarket. A typical example of this would be the Toshiba case in Japan, where Toshiba was a major manufacturer of elevators and refused to give the parts to the individual and independent firms that were doing the maintenance of those elevators, because Toshiba wanted to do it itself and to do it at a higher price, and therefore wanted to get rid of competition on the maintenance part. So competition authorities have also intervened to eliminate anti-competitive practices on aftermarkets. The last issue I would like to deal with is what we see now, which is more and more companies not selling a product, but selling a solution, which is based on the product, but with all kinds of services and charging for the services rather than charging for the product. This raises three questions from the point of view of competition. The first one is the possibility of data monopolization by the supplier, because he has all the information about what are the needs of the customer, and when, therefore, does he need to repair or what kind of product does he have to have. And this data, once it is given to the manufacturer, tends to be the property of the manufacturer, and the manufacturer has no interest in sharing this data with competitors, and that limits competition. So competition authorities have had to intervene, both by pushing regulation, but also in cases to force a better transmission of the data. The second issue is that this kind of arrangement eliminates completely the aftermarket that I was talking about before, because now there is no one to ask for independent services, repair, maintenance, or other things. So in some cases, this may be a way to integrate in order to eliminate competition. And when that is so, competition authorities intervene. The third dimension is the tying and bundling. What the producers, the manufacturers offer are a bundle of services. That would include whatever service the product is giving, plus the maintenance of the product, plus the insurance in case it breaks down, and possibly many other services. All this is offered as a basket. You cannot pick one service and not take the others. That means that the competitors on those services who do not produce the whole range of services cannot compete with the manufacturers who put out those bundles of services. Think of an insurance company. You cannot insure yourself as a customer somewhere else besides at the insurance company, which is part of the bundle. This reduces competition between the insurance companies. So this bundling and tying may have anti-competitive effects, and again, competition authorities intervene there. Finally, there's the question of interoperability. The supplier of the product is going to make sure that his services only interoperate with his product and not with a product of a competing supplier, or which means that the suppliers of competing services or the supplier of competing products cannot get access to his system. The lack of interoperability means that the customer is locked into a relationship with a particular supplier. And from that point of view, I mean, I can pinpoint, for example, the CMA recent analysis of the cloud sector, in which it found that both Amazon and Microsoft who are selling professional services to the company, are also hosting their data on their clouds. And when the customers want to move their data to another cloud providers, they have to pay an egress fee, which of course is a cost to the firms and is a disincentive to change supplier. So the CMA has made sure that those egress fees were eliminated. This is what I wanted to say. The servicification of manufacturing products raises new competition issues, and competition authorities in all the world both in the developing and in the developed world, have been very aware of those developments and have tackled those new challenges and will continue to tackle the challenges that they will face in relationship to this issue. Thank you very much.